We are now in the networking phase of the symposium, and hopefully people who are interested in the middle and high school networking phase should be in this particular breakout room. We have 45 minutes, and we want to have a conversation and not a presentation. So there are some questions that we have developed to get the conversation started, but we don't have to do this in any order. You can talk about how you got started with using systems thinking in your class. How can people get started? What would you recommend from your experience? And then the other thing that's important is what went wrong and how might you, um, what were your anticipated results and they didn't happen. So, does anyone want to talk about how they were able to just get off the ground the very first time they started using this in their classroom? How, did you have to talk to your principal? Were you able to try it out yourself? How did you get started? Anyone? Okay, Thor.
I can get us started, I guess. I talked about it last year, um, but it was a hard sell. We've had numerous math courses turned down at our school, and so we had to find a way to present to our administration that this was an important class. And so we kind of and Diana helped a lot with coming in and speaking to our administration as well. But it really um, talking about the importance of a better math, that we can do better, and that the systems was a we don't want to replace algebra, but we want to have adjacent math courses and offerings that meet the kids in a world that they're going to enter. They're not going to get a job at NASA sitting at a desk running calculations on polynomials. And that we're still operating on that NASA basis. And we need to start, like, technology is here. We need to get them going. They need to know how to work in spreadsheets and programming and deeper thinking learning, and we need to provide that for them. We hear all these things about students are not doing well with math. They're not understanding math. And that's because we're teaching math that doesn't speak to them. We need to meet the students where they are, and we have not been doing that. The fact that we're still teaching math from when we wore woolen uniforms in the Civil War and had horse-drawn carriages in the dirty streets of Washington, D.C., it's nonsensical. That's not where we are as a society, and that's not where we're going as a society. So we really tried to push hard on this idea that we need to modernize our education system and system.
Would anyone
I
else?
appreciate.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah, I
Ann.
just want to say, so I taught math for many years in Portland Public, Thor, and so it's fun to kind of come back but I'm in Washington now, and I worked at the state level Department of Ed, and we've been really had looked at that very issue. It's like we don't need to factor quadratics. There's so much that we really don't need to teach. And so, we had developed some courses that were really focused on building the conceptual ideas around the mathematics, functions. And then there's also a course that was modernizing Algebra 2, where it kind of is like, here's kind of what you need to know. And then kind of had a three-pronged, either modeling, data science. I can't remember what the other one was. But I appreciate that, because I think it's really, there's so much that we can bring in with modeling, with, a lot of other data science, GIS, that we can, like you said, spreadsheets, just that we can really begin to be more meaningful and really help students in those careers, in any careers that they jump into. So have you found much change there in what the courses look like at
Well,
the high
we
school
have
level?
oh yeah, So we have a wonderful curriculum in data science. A really great friend of mine got it up and going at IW Wells, and it's a magnificent course. I had the opportunity of teaching it with him for a couple of years, and it's exceptional. So Nick Noner at IW Wells has developed an incredible curriculum on data science and really does a deep dive into that. So when I talk with the kids, I explain to them that the data science is kind of an applied AP stats course. Like AP
Yeah.
stats is great, but you're actually doing it in the data science. I teach AP calculus, which is great. I love AP calculus, but systems modeling is actually doing it. You're actually utilizing derivatives and integrals in a way that's more meaningful. And the cross curricular accessibility of like a systems class where they're doing biology and chemistry and economics and mathematics in one class is so much more beneficial and available to them as a greater learning. And when I reflect with the students every year, particularly in the AP classes as their senior level kids, I'm like, so you just went through education, like you experienced what we consider education. What are some things that you liked, and what are some things you wish you could improve upon? And always, 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 like cross curricular work comes up, and both data science and systems modeling allow for that cross curricular understanding. We have a wonderful student right now who is using her journalism class to do an expose on the district funding that I mentioned earlier. She's doing a lot of public records requests through her journaling class. She's in a digital media class, so she's going to make a documentary about it. So she's going to write an article, a documentary, and in the modeling class, she's modeling the funding distribution through systems dynamics. And so, this kid's using 3 or 4 of her different classes to work together in this cross curricular examination of the district funding issue. So I don't think we get that with the quadratic formula.
Exactly.
I have to say that just within mathematics classes, I like the structure. It gives my math students who were not very good with equations another way to visualize different types of functions and the behaviors that go with them. And I found my students who were not very strong in math really liked the stock flow approach because it wasn't XYZ. There were actual words on each of the pieces. And it was a two-dimensional blueprint for why the curves came out the way they did. And I think it helps us reach more students. I like the visual structure approach of organizing a complex idea. And for kids who are not very strong in math, just plain simple equations and functions are a complex idea to them. So, and of course, biology is like up here on what you can do for complex. And the structure with what Christian showed, I think, just brings so much more understanding. You have something to cement, something to grab onto than just words, or being presented. They get tired of just being presented to. The conversations from both Thor and Christian were, I think, a big part of their classes, which I think is terrific. Anybody else like to bring in ideas? The other thing I have some other questions we can talk about. We have 45 minutes. Before we get off the getting started, does anyone else want to bring up any ideas they'd like to share? Tori?
Sure. Thank you. I was happy to hear in the opening pieces, Peter Senge mentioned history. I'm coming at systems thinking from a history, social studies perspective, and I've used it in a variety of tools in my classroom for, I'd say, probably 20 years now. And I just do it. I've never asked. I just do it, and have been the only person in my school for many years who's been doing it. And in the last couple of years since joining some of the systems dynamic webinars and other groups that are out there trying to build my network, because I'm, as he says, you've got to have a network to build and to do more of this work. And it has pushed me to do even more. I am a IB diploma coordinator at my school in addition to teaching IB history. And so it's pushed me out of the curricular elements, and I use systems thinking and various tools to bring in ATLs and to work with the cohorts on
What's an
a lot of
ATL?
reflection. It's part of the IB learner kind of pedagogy. It's the approaches to learning skills, and it gets students metacognitive on some of these really basic skills they need to thrive in the complex world. And one of the things that I really particularly like about the IB diploma, and so whether it's social emotional learning or whether it's the learner profiles or these ATLs that are so ingrained in the IB, I try to introduce it to students in a way that they're talking about themselves. So they're using tools and they're reflecting on themselves. I've used stock flow diagram, just looking at sort of that metacognition and that focus and what contributes and what. And so when they're talking about themselves, it comes much more natural, I find. And then when we use it with more abstract or more curricular objects, they're already a little bit familiar with some of the thinking. But my students in history do some pretty cool stuff, and I think they're going to be presenting soon to a group. I'm in Tunisia, and so they're going to be presenting to another group here on the continent who's working on some systems thinking. They are all university level or above, but my high school students are game to share with them what they've been doing. So I'm totally solo. I'm trying to get my school interested, but at a very small school that works within certain parameters, it's a little bit challenging. I'm trying to do more with teachers, but I'm kind of going with the adage, just do what I'm doing, branching out, and hopefully I can get some of that interest from colleagues and help bring them along and support them in their classroom. I loved hearing what Christian is doing with biology, and absolutely I've taken some notes, and I'd like to get our DP biology teacher perhaps in touch with Christian. And so those little network things, I get really excited to hear what other people are doing.
We'd like for you to let us know kind of what you're doing. We could have you present next year on history. We have had a webinar with a history teacher who's done some amazing things. And this is the beauty of the multidisciplinary. The stock and flow is just a language. It's a language for understanding concepts that works across disciplines. And so it's beautiful to be able to see it in history as well. So that's great. I definitely would like to talk to you more and see more of what you're doing. The thing is, a lot of us have been doing this by ourselves, the only one in our location. And what we need are friends to kind of find more out about, resources, share resources. We are in the process of setting up a big website where we'll start after this symposium, setting up a website with lessons, with videos, with some mini courses for teachers and educators who we hope to bring together everything that we've collected so that people have a lot of resources to be able to use themselves. Another thing that I think people misunderstand, which is hard when you're beginning, is that this is an approach to thinking. So you can't do it in a 2-week project and expect kids to take it out of the classroom and use it anywhere. It has to be used throughout your course. if it is going to become a thinking process that your students take with them when they leave your course. Now, that's really hard if you're just getting started teaching with it. So, you may start with just a little 2-week kind of thing because that's all you can prepare in your first exposure. But I think that it's really, really important to use some kind of your systems thinking approach throughout the entire course so students understand that this is an approach to thinking. It's not just a little project thing I learned in this little piece of the course. Have you found any resistance to Christian?
Yeah, just I wanted to say because I've actually done quite a bit of work trying to promote stock and flow for quite a while. I mentioned it, I've written almost half a book on it, a blog post, and I still have people who really like the book, and even though all those models are there, and even though I write a 3,000 word example step by step how I would do it in a lesson, they still email me and ask me for videos of how I'm doing it in the classroom. And I think it's so peculiar to so many people that for me the move forward is to try and be as explicit as possible. And when we say resources, just having the models is nowhere near enough for the people I speak to. They need to
Right.
know exactly what you would do step by step in the classroom, and if possible videos. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The best way we can communicate to others how we do it, because it's not just looking at your slides and figuring that out. It's actually watching you do it, hearing the way you ask students questions and things like that, that would help me be able to try to replicate what you're doing in your class. And I think we can transfer to other disciplines the ideas. Like I could watch your biology lesson and probably figure out through a video and probably figure out how to transfer that approach in my math class. Um, let's see. I have found parents very supportive of their students learning this, but I advertise to the parents every chance I get. So back to school night, back to school, the beginning of the year when the parents go around to all the classroom teachers and try to find out what the teachers' expectations are, parent-teacher conferences, eighth grade night. I'm always kind of talking about this approach and why it's important. And in the 20 years that I taught system dynamics, both in my math classes and in a system dynamics modeling course, I have never once had a parent complain, why are my students learning this? I have had parents say, I wish I learned this in school. So I think parents can be quite good champions to support if you really want to get this off the ground in your school. Having parents in your back, helping you out is also good. Have you had
Diana, sorry, the only thing
Yes.
we've found with that is parents generally supportive, apart from they have concerns sometimes about what the universities will think. Like, is it too kind of experimental for the universities? That's the only time, and they sort of sometimes advise their kids to sort of play it safe and do a different elective that's a bit safer. And so that's the only challenge we've had with parents. I think once they see it, they're very enthused by it, but it's getting them over the initial sort of activation energy of actually looking at it in depth, because they initially are like, oh, is my kid going to be a guinea pig and this is new and experimental for the school, and playing it safe has been something we've encountered a little bit.
Yeah. Of course, system dynamics has been around since the 1950s.
Of course.
So it's not exactly new, but it is
Exactly.
very new to a lot of us in pre-college education. And I can understand the parents wanting their kids to be able to get into the university that they want to get into. It takes time, but it doesn't, I think showing student work. I have had, when I taught these system dynamics courses and I show what the work is that students have produced, the model and the paper that they have explaining the model, um, they they say this looks more like university work than it does secondary school work. But that's with a system dynamics modeling course where you have some uh, extra time for students to produce that level of work for themselves. We need somehow to show student work, the quality of work that students can do. And I think parents want what's best for their kids, but they can also realize by watching what students have done, um, I think they can come to some appreciation for the value of it. More or less, I've had not so much trouble with principals. I tend to just do what I think I should do in my classroom. Don't really ask permission. I figure I'm a trained professional in the topic and in, the level, and I should be able to make good decisions for my students, knowing what I have to prepare them for in the next course that they take. So I have not had trouble from administrators, but I was thinking maybe some people might have trouble from administrators. I don't know. Martha, do you want to say something?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Hi, Dan. Yeah, funny that you mentioned that because that was going to be my question is for the teachers who are teaching it, how many of you do or don't have the support of the school administration? There is an example here in one of our school divisions in the foothills. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where it's been embraced as a whole sort of learning philosophy and systems thinking in general. And it's actually the administration is of the entire Foothills School Division, which here encompasses peri-urban regions and small town regions around Calgary. So it's several schools, and they've adopted the whole administration, all the teachers, everyone's on board. So I guess maybe the idea is the students are immersed in a whole culture that goes outside the individual classrooms. It's the teacher, the administration is conversing with the parents. It's like everyone knows what's going on here. But there aren't many examples like that actually. So I'm just wondering about the level of administrative support and how that can, play in or play out, for or against what you as an individual teacher are hoping to achieve.
Ellen, do you want to talk about what happened in um, Carlisle school system? Alan, are you still there? Ah, too bad. Maybe when he comes back. They had their superintendent was supportive, the school board was supportive, the administration was, it was just one school. And they did some terrific work in their school. It was a K-8 school.
Oh yeah.
They were doing some amazing work in their school, and then their superintendent retired, and the new superintendent had no interest in it.
Oh,
And so a lot of what they had built up
oh gosh.
was lost over time. And
Yeah.
that is really, really frustrating to do. Some of the teachers kept doing it themselves, but it did not have the breadth. Teachers
Yeah.
leave, they need to be retrained.
True.
Administrators leave, they need to be retrained. I did in my first school take time to give a presentation to my administration after I'd been doing it for a little while in my classroom, because I had a positive relationship with them and I just thought they would be interested. Anyway.
Well, it seems to me actually a way that we can maybe um, uh, mitigate some of that sense of loss is and especially now with video, it's so darn simple, is to be documenting, documenting about it so that the people forward, the teachers forward, at least they have, oh my God, oh, guess what? This did happen here. This has been here. Maybe not right now. It has been here. I just think that, potentially just strengthens their sense of verve and enthusiasm and say, oh, I'm not on a new path, actually. Oh, guess what? La la la, and on they go.
Yeah, it's
I'm in a lineage here, perhaps.
um
Just a thought.
Faye, would you like to say something? You're muted.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing that I've had success with is using the tools on teacher teams. So come in the side door, if you will. We were trying to, especially I love the ladder of inference, the head of the team. Well, because this teacher came in late, I'm assuming she wasn't very interested in getting our work done. And thus, when I assigned my expert team, my action was to exclude her. But it helps us see our thinking and how we are or not implementing new pedagogies, new curriculum things effectively. The other thing that has been, and then once teachers begin to see, oh, that helped me see my thinking and how my habits of thinking and my experience lead me to actions, assumptions that may or may not be good for the system as a whole, then they're thinking this could make sense in helping students realize that. But along the same line as the iceberg, there's all this pressure. I'm in a public school about low test scores. Well, if that's at the top of the iceberg, what's going on below that's causing our, declining test scores? Is it lack of family engagement? So defining that and then looking more comprehensively to a solution, then soon at a grade level, soon the administrator, the principal was paying attention. Oh gosh, you invited your parents in and talk to them about the importance of, supporting your child's homework, at home, et cetera. So sometimes coming in and using it as the teachers, the practitioners, begins to infiltrate it in the system, and it's another tool. It's not
Right.
like something big that's a heavy lift. We begin to use a couple tools that have an impact, and then the barriers start to disappear and it kind of filters through. But like every other change, it starts with your innovative group or your stronger teams first, and then, goes on from there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Um, Another kind of statement that I get when I'm talking to teachers is my curriculum's too full. I just cannot add something new to it. Do you have any response to that? How did you do? How did you add something new to an already packed curriculum?
I mean, I can
Wait,
speak
who's
to, so, a lot of when, I was teaching and looking is how do I take what they're already learning around linear functions, exponential functions, and just use that stock flow diagrams, behavior over time graph, stock flow modeling that might give an opportunity to, swap out a few of my lessons with actually using that tool or using those tools to help develop those concepts that are in a much more connecting to their lived experiences, connecting that's more concrete and not so abstract. And then what I found is that even if I replaced a few lessons with that their understanding and their ability to kind of continue to move forward really increased quite a bit. And I actually gained their learning by providing an opportunity where they are learning about those kind of really, abstract math concepts through a very concrete experience that they've already, have connections to, a bathtub or, something going viral. And I think, particularly thinking about for an access point for all students, knowing like a lot of the kids I would teach just came with a lot of gaps, a lot of holes, a lot of trauma in math, and a lot of not successes where they've just shut down by kind of middle school. And so this really provided them an opportunity to get them to be re-engaged and to be curious about the math, really to want to learn more and create their own models, create their own stories that really related to linear and exponential growth. So I think it's really finding those places that whatever's being taught in the curriculum, and then either adding it or, kind of maybe swapping it out, which really has, a huge impact that builds their confidence in math to be able to kind of continue to understand those concepts.
Thank you, Anne. Yes, I agree. When you see what happens in the kids' thinking and their ability, it really, that's why we're here. We've seen this. Christian, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just about to publish a new book that's not on stock and flow, but it's basically on this idea that for a long time, people think that we're teaching kind of knowledge, and there's content, and there's the idea of transmission or construction. But my view is much more based on an activism in that we're coordinating a way of doing things. So I'm not adding to my curriculum extra things. What we're doing is we're coordinating a way of being a biologist, a way of doing biology. So we're doing biology through stock and flow models, and that's a way that I express it to the students as well.
It's a method. It's a method for interacting with the concepts you want them to understand.
Yeah.
I agree. Tori? Yeah.
I appreciate Christian's use of the word activism. I think that resonates a bit with me, and I've had conversations with Henny. I don't want to speak for her because she's not here, but I think what she does in the field of economics, she would probably appreciate that a bit as well. But I find that it's easy to integrate into curriculum. It's more challenging to take the time to learn it first, right? And to share with teachers who might already be teaching 4 or 5 different preps and maybe don't have the luxury of teaching the same students year in, year out. And so it is a time commitment to be able to learn and to share some of the skills. But as we said earlier, I think kind of seeing, doing, and then teaching, but seeing it in motion. And I forget somebody else who said earlier about kind of coming in the side door. I'm not a saleswoman. I'm not a big promoter. I love the idea of putting together some blogs and books. And I love that idea of trying to capture all of that. But in my day-to-day life, that's something that I'm going to have to leave for a dream another day and just keep doing what I'm doing, using these tools and being more effective in my job, working with parents, students, and teachers, and just try to share and spread as I go. But it does take time to learn and be conversant. As Thor was saying earlier, some of these are languages, maybe not to the same level as Stella modeling is, but you do have to have a little level of comfort in order to kind of play around with it a bit.
It's true. It takes some time to learn it, but I started using it in my classroom. I had no training in it. I just started with something tiny that I thought I could understand. And I built my expertise as I started to use it more. So we don't have to know a lot, but we have to kind of see this looks like something my kids might get something out of. I think I'll try it. We need to just keep trying things ourselves. Thor?
Yes, so I very much agree with everybody in this conversation. Uh, what I was what I was thinking about is that students are always asking, "How is this relevant?" And I think with a systems who's the why is this important to me? And I think with a lot of our topics, as Christian was speaking about, like we're talking to the students, not working with the students. And I think it's really hard with I think it's hard to lose the perspective in a systems thinking component where it's hard to get away from this is relevant. I think a lot of times, like as an algebra teacher, we get caught up in the routine of the algebra steps, the process of the steps, and we lose the relevance. But if you're looking at a flow diagram, it's very hard to lose like how did I not understand what I wasn't understand. I just think the understanding is inherent to the building of the model, if that makes sense. And I think that's what's so important about bringing that into our classrooms is the modeling is so much inherent to the understanding of what's going on. I think back to when we were like revamping our curriculum in the United States with the Common Core. I was like, great, we're finally going to like reflect on and reorganize and really think about what's important about mathematics. And then they said, we're going to move exponentials into algebra 1, 2, and we're going to move complex numbers. And I like, that's not updating our expectations. Like our expectations are that the kids understand what's going on. And that's not getting away from automaticity and numeracy, but it is like connecting them with the world that they're seeing out there, like seeing how the world works around them. But
Yeah. That's funny. I tried to get an article published, and I've published some articles. I tried to get an article published in the National Council of Teachers of Math. They had no idea what I was talking about. So I didn't get an article published. The thing is, they have one way of thinking about things, and this is kind of different. And so just being able to, there's a structure that they anticipate, and we are kind of breaking out of that structure. I have another question. Assessment. How can you tell whether your students are actually picking up the ideas from your systems thinking approach? Because you can't use traditional assessments necessarily. Sometimes you can, but really, the assessments have to reflect the way that you're teaching them, the way you're getting them to think. You're asking them to think differently. So the assessments have to be a little different, I think. How do you assess whether the kids are actually picking up the concepts, the deeper concepts you're trying to get from them?
So, I mean, it's a great question. And I think we're so used to our assessments being our end of the unit. Yes, or, did it get the answer right or not? Or, a state test where it's multiple choice or getting the answer right or not. And I think even Peter, alluded to this as just we're so used to this kind of industrialized way of thinking that it's kind of binary that you got it right or you didn't, and I'm going to give you a percentage based on how many you got right, how many didn't get right. Where I kind of think it's so important to it's the kinds of questions we ask that we can surface student thinking. And so if we know if we're really clear on what we want students to walk away with, which I think is the first step and most important. And then it's like, well, then how do I see that in the conversations they're having? Or how do I hear that in the conversations? How do I see that in what they're designing and writing? How do I ask probing questions that can elicit an even deeper understanding of what they understand or what maybe some misconceptions. And I think that's really hard because everything else is super easy to do, an end of the unit, a final, those type of things. And again, it's a really shift of a lens. It's like, here's what I want my students to know. So there's many different ways I can assess that. And I don't have to just give a test at the end of the unit to determine that they know it or not. And
so what do you do? What do you do?
So I listen. I listen to what they're saying. I have very clear in my mind, these are what I want them to understand. And if it seemed, and then I might ask a probing question. And I'm doing this not just because I'm walking around to see if they're keeping on task. I'm walking around to see, okay, to what degree do they understand this concept, and listening to those conversations and providing those opportunities, or if they are, creating a story around a particular scenario, around linear functions or quadratic functions. What does that reveal to me? And it's about writing questions, about asking questions that reveal student thinking, and that surfaces student thinking. And
do you put that on tests?
Whatever you do,
too?
What's that?
Do you put those kinds of questions on tests as well?
Why do we do tests?
Well,
I mean, because I think, why? What is it? What information is it getting to us? If they get it right or wrong, I'm interested if they understand it. And my expertise as a teacher and is one that I can determine that just by listening to students and by continuing to probe more and ask probing questions, as well as I can get even more so than on an assessment. Or I might ask them to do kind of an exit ticket to explain their thinking. And so I think it's a real shift in how we think about assessment, that it's not easy, but I should be able to know by the end of my class, by the end of the semester, where all students are at without giving a huge end of the unit test and putting a lot of weight on that. So I think it's how do we surface student thinking?
I think it'd be great to have a presentation next year on different ways we are assessing our students. Just like what you're saying, we need to talk about the different ways so we get more ways to figure out how to do this. Now, we only have 2 more minutes. Okay, Thor.
So just real quick, I think we need to change in the same way that Christian was talking about activism. We need to change our way about assessment and not be so simply critical of minutia, but talk to the students about building a portfolio of understanding. And so like at the end of the course, they have this portfolio of understanding that they're leaving our course with. And a lot of that can be self-reflected understanding. So it doesn't have to be that we're telling them what they know or telling them that they don't know, but it can be that they are reflective of their own understanding of their own portfolio. And I think students would find that a large degree of integrity in that. Okay. Sorry.
Thanks, Thor. Tori, you're the last one, because then we have to go.
Okay, just again, coming from a perspective of the International Baccalaureate, I think that many of those assessments are designed with critical thinking and conceptual knowledge in mind. And so while I don't create the tests per se, they're modeled off what the IB has, I know my students are getting it because their articulation of these very complex topics, they're considering multiple perspectives. That becomes automatic to them. And so that's the feedback that they're getting, they're understanding it, is how they're looking at the world through these very complex lenses and multiple perspectives. To me, that shows me that they're getting the systems thinking.
I think we have a lot to learn from the IB curriculum. So I definitely want to follow up on that. I think we have to go back to the main room. Sarah's Chung is going to give us a plenary talk. Thank you very much. This has been extremely stimulating. Thank you very much for coming and having this conversation. I hope to see and work with you more over the next year.